Level 1. The recruit. You don't walk into Mossad. Nobody does. They find you. A recruiter approaches you during mandatory military service in the IDF. You're 20 years old, finishing your second year in an intelligence unit, and someone in plain clothes asks if you'd like to have coffee. No uniform, no rank insignia, just a name you'll later learn was fake. The conversation is casual. They ask about your family, your languages, your plans after service. They never mention Mossad. They never mention intelligence work. 2 weeks later, you receive a letter with an address in Tel Aviv and a date. No explanation. You show up at an unmarked building in an industrial area that could be an accounting firm or a warehouse. The entrance has a keypad and a camera. You're buzzed in. The hallway smells like coffee and printer toner. A woman at a desk hands you a form. Psychological evaluation, 600 questions. Do you feel anxious in crowds? Have you ever stolen anything? Would you lie to protect a friend? There are no right answers, only honest ones. They already know everything about you anyway. Your school records, your social media from when you were 15, every person you've dated, every place you've traveled, your parents' political affiliations, your brother's gambling problem he thinks nobody knows about. They've been watching for months before that coffee meeting. The evaluation takes 4 hours. Then comes the interview. 3 people you'll never see again ask you questions designed to find your breaking point. They insult your intelligence. They question your loyalty. They imply you're too soft, too privileged, too Israeli to do what this job requires. You either keep your composure or you don't. Most don't. You do. They tell you to go home. You'll hear from them or you won't. 6 weeks pass. You assume it's over. Then your phone rings at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. A man's voice tells you to be at the same address tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Bring nothing. Tell nobody. You're in. The training facility isn't where you expected. It's not the Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv. It's a compound in the desert near Herzliya that doesn't appear on any map. The course is called the Mossad Training Course. Everyone just calls it the course. It lasts 18 months. The first 3 months are academics, intelligence theory, surveillance detection, operational security, cryptography, the structure of foreign intelligence services, the history of Israeli operations you've never heard of because they're still classified. You learn about the Lillehammer affair in Norway, where Mossad killed the wrong man. You learn about Operation Wrath of God, the systematic assassination of everyone involved in the Munich massacre. You learn that intelligence work is 90% patience and preparation, and 10% action that has to be perfect, because there's no second chance. You study languages. If you already speak Arabic, they teach you the dialect of Damascus, not Cairo, because accents get you killed. If you speak English, they teach you to sound American, not British, because an American tourist draws less attention in most of the world. If you speak Farsi, they train you until you can pass as someone from Tehran, not just someone who learned Farsi in a classroom. Then comes fieldcraft. Surveillance. You follow a target through Jerusalem's old city without being detected. The target is an instructor who's been doing this for 20 years. He knows every counter-surveillance trick because he invented half of them. You fail the first 7 times. On the 8th attempt, you stay on him for 4 hours through markets and alleyways and bus transfers, and he never spots you. That's when you start to understand. This isn't about being invisible. It's about being forgettable. Counter-surveillance. You walk a route while a team tries to follow you. If you spot them, you signal. If you don't spot them, they document every mistake you made. The first time, you miss all 5 surveillance. The second time, you spot 2. By the 20th iteration, you can feel when someone's watching, the way you can feel someone staring at the back of your head in a quiet room. Cover identity development. They give you a legend, a false background. You're a German businessman selling industrial equipment. You memorize a childhood in Munich you never had, a university degree from a school you never attended, a career history at companies that exist but never employed you. They grill you for hours. Where did you go to elementary school? What was your teacher's name? What did you eat for lunch on Tuesdays? You answer without hesitation, because hesitation is detection, and detection is death. They test your legend by sending you into the field, a cafe in Tel Aviv, where a retired Shin Bet officer sits reading a newspaper. Your job is to approach him, start a conversation, maintain your cover for 20 minutes. He'll try to break you with questions that seem innocent, but aren't. You sit down. Order coffee in German accented Hebrew. He asks, what brings you to Israel? You tell him about a contract negotiation with a manufacturing firm in Haifa. He asks which firm. You name it. He asks who you're meeting. You provide a name. Real person? Real company? The legend is built on verifiable facts mixed with fabrication, because the best lies are mostly truth. He pushes. Asks about your family. Your university years. A restaurant in Munich that closed 15 years ago, testing if you know your legend's timeline. You answer correctly. He smiles. You passed. Weapons training comes next. You already know how to shoot from the IDF. They teach you to shoot differently. Close quarters. A pistol drawn from concealment under a jacket in a crowd. 2 shots to the chest, 1 to the head. Weapon back under the jacket. Walk away. The entire sequence takes 3 seconds. You practice until you can do it blindfolded by muscle memory alone. Rifle work at distance. Not sniper ranges, operational ranges. 75 meters from a rooftop. 100 meters from a vehicle. Shots you might take during an exfiltration when things have gone catastrophically wrong. Edged weapons. A knife isn't your primary tool, but if you're in a room with a target and no other option, you need to know where to cut so they can't scream and how long it takes for someone to lose consciousness from blood loss. The answer is longer than you think. Training doesn't make this easier. It just makes you competent. Then comes the specialty phase. Every katsa chooses a track. Some become recruiters, specialists in human intelligence who develop assets in foreign countries. Others become technical operators, experts in surveillance equipment, communications, cyber operations. Some become combatants, the ones who do the work that requires more than conversation. You're selected for targeted operations, the division that handles threats Mossad can't arrest and won't ignore. You don't choose this path. They choose you based on psychological evaluations you didn't know were happening during the previous months. They're looking for something specific, not aggression. Aggression gets people killed. They want calm, the ability to take a life and then board a flight home and sleep on the plane. Your instructor is a man in his 50s who's been with Mossad since the 80s. He doesn't tell you his name. He teaches you how to kill someone in a hotel room and make it look like a heart attack, how to stage a car accident on a mountain road, how to use poison that metabolizes into substances the body produces naturally, undetectable, in autopsy. You learn about deniability. If you're caught, Israel will disavow you. You'll be tried in a foreign court. You'll serve a foreign sentence. The state won't acknowledge you exist. That's not a worst-case scenario. That's the only scenario if the operation fails. The final exercise is a simulated operation in Europe. You're given a target package. A man living in Vienna who's allegedly passing Israeli state secrets to Iran. Allegedly, because this is a test and the man is an actor, but you don't know that. You have 2 weeks. Plan the operation, conduct surveillance, identify patterns of life, develop an approach, execute. You fly to Vienna on a German passport with your cover identity. You locate the target. Follow him for 5 days. He takes the same route to work, stops at the same cafe. meets the same people. On day 6, you identify the vulnerability. He jogs alone every morning through Stat Park at 6 a.m. You prepare the approach. On day 8, you make contact during his jog. A staged collision, an apology, a brief conversation. You're gone before he realizes what happened. Actually, nothing happened. But in the debrief, they tell you the surveillance team photographed the moment you brushed past him. Close enough to deliver a needle injection, if this were real. Close enough to disappear into the park before anyone noticed. You pass. 18 months after you started, you're a katsa. They assign you a handler and a communications protocol. You receive a passport that isn't Israeli. You're given an apartment in a country you won't name under a name you won't use again. Your first assignment is surveillance work. Watching, not acting. They don't send new officers to do the irreversible work immediately. You have to prove yourself in the field where mistakes aren't fatal. Level 7, the operator. 3 years in, you've run operations on 4 continents: Tehran, Damascus, Beirut, locations in Africa and Europe that shift depending on where the threats emerge. You've recruited assets who feed intelligence back to Tel Aviv. You've conducted surveillance operations lasting months. You've sat in cars outside embassies photographing everyone who enters. You've planted listening devices in hotel rooms and extracted them 72 hours later. And you've done the other work, the work that ends with a body and a flight out before sunrise. Your handler sends you to a European capital. The target is an arms dealer facilitating weapons transfers to Hezbollah. He's been on the list for 2 years. Interpol won't touch him. The host country considers him a businessman. Mossad considers him a threat. You receive the package. Photographs, addresses, known associates, patterns of life. He lives in a secure apartment building, travels with private security, varies his routes. He's careful, but not careful enough. Everyone has a vulnerability. You find his. A mistress in a flat across the city he visits every Thursday evening. He goes alone. No security. Just him and overconfidence. Oh. You prepare for 3 weeks. Study the neighborhood. Identify cameras. Map escape routes. The apartment building has one entrance and a rear fire exit that opens into an alley. You choose the alley. Thursday arrives. You're in position at 8 p.m., wearing dark clothes and a face that cameras won't recognize because you've applied subtle prosthetics that change your features just enough. He exits the building at 10:15, same as every week. Alone. The alley is empty. You approach from behind. No words. It's over in seconds. A suppressed pistol, 2 rounds, center mass. He drops. You're already moving. Out of the alley into a waiting car driven by Sayan, a volunteer helper who knows nothing except where to drive. 40 minutes later, you're at a safe house. 2 hours after that, you're at the airport with a British passport. You board a morning flight to London and connect to Tel Aviv. 12 hours after the shooting, you're in a debriefing room in headquarters answering questions about angles and timing and whether anyone saw your face. They didn't. You sleep for 10 hours. When you wake, the operation feels like something that happened to someone else. Level 8, the burned operative. Not every operation ends clean. Sometimes the host country identifies you. Sometimes an asset talks. Sometimes a camera catches something it shouldn't. You're declared persona non grata in a country where you ran operations for 2 years. Your cover identity is burned. Your face is flagged in their databases. You can never return. This happens to most katsas eventually. The operational lifespan in hostile territory is limited. You adapt. Mossad reassigns you to training or analysis or operations in countries where your face isn't known. Some katsas retire here. Others go private, security consulting or intelligence work for corporations. The skills transfer cleanly. A few stay and move into command, running operations instead of executing them. Level 9. The handler. You become what your first handler was. The person who assigns operations and receives reports and makes decisions about which threats require action. You sit in meetings with military intelligence and Shin Bet and the Prime Minister's office. You review target packages and decide who gets surveillance and who gets a team. The weight is different now. When you pulled the trigger, you carried the consequence personally. Now you send others to carry it. Young katsas who remind you of yourself at 25, convinced they're prepared for something no one is ever prepared for. You send them anyway because the alternative is allowing threats to metastasize until they cost Israeli lives. Level 10. The silence. You leave Mossad after 15 years. There's no ceremony. You sign more paperwork about secrecy. The operations you ran, the people you killed, the assets you recruited, none of it will ever appear in any public record. You're prohibited from writing about it, speaking about it, confirming you were ever part of it. You take a job, consulting usually, security work for a tech company or a bank. You sit in meetings about risk assessment, and everyone thinks you're just another consultant. You'll never tell them about Vienna or Tehran, or the man in the alley who didn't see you coming. You'll carry that alone. Somewhere in Israel right now, a young officer is finishing the selection course. They're about to learn what it costs to protect a nation that can't afford a single miscalculation. The cycle continues. It always does. You retire to a quiet apartment in Tel Aviv or Herzliya. Your neighbors think you worked in government administration. Your children know you did something classified, but they've stopped asking. The reunions happen twice a year at a private venue where former katsas gather and speak in careful language about things that can't be named. You see faces you haven't seen in decades. Some aged well, others didn't. You exchange looks that communicate what words can't. The nightmares come less frequently now, maybe once a month instead of once a week. The faces fade, but never disappear completely. The man in Vienna, the asset in Damascus who was compromised and you couldn't extract in time. The operation in Beirut that went perfect except for the civilian who turned the corner at the wrong moment. You read the news differently than other people. When a weapons facility explodes in Iran, you recognize the signature. When a Hamas commander dies in a car accident that doesn't look like an accident, you know colleagues still in the field just completed an operation that will never be acknowledged. The work continues without you. It has to. Your grandson asks what you did in the army. You tell him you served in intelligence. He asks if you ever did anything dangerous. You smile and say everyone's service is important. He'll never know. Nobody will. That was always the deal.